5, Nick.
Office hours 9, everyone. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome to you back.
It's good to be back.
It's great. How are you doing? Are you on the road to recovery?
I am. So if you tuned in to last office hours, Brendan said that I was going to be going under the knife, which I did. That was about a month ago. I am wearing shoes because I got some toe surgery, and first week was dreadful. I felt like somebody was still cutting into my toes. Second week, a little bit better. Third and fourth week, I am mobile.
So, you've got to at least be 1 to 2 weeks away from starting like a foot fetish OnlyFans, right?
I kind of low key started that once I got the surgery.
That you probably like you're so niche with your feet that like you hit it early. I like that. I think that's aggressive.
I did. I really wanted to show the progress and just show the open wounds. So I figured, why not? And they were swollen.
Got to go for it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
well, this is one way to start an episode.
This is welcome back to YouTube, Brennan.
Yeah. I learned a lot from Jessie Hoffman.
Same. And I think that there were a lot of big words that you probably understood that I kind of flew by me, which was kind of cool because it just speaks to the depth of the knowledge that Jessie Hoffman has.
Yeah. Nick, did I impress you when I started talking about glyphosate? Yes or no?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then you threw out that like Dr. Hoffman mentioned autophagy. I didn't know about autophagy, and you were like, I just wrote that word down. I was like,
I did. I'm in it. I'm deep in the literature, and by literature, I mean YouTube.
Deep in the content.
I don't read anymore. That's
there
silly.
We go. But yeah, it was a really cool talk. I did learn a lot too, and
yeah,
it's so cool because she just could have kept going. Like she knows so much. It's kind of absurd, like how much I feel like she knows about every different topic. Like even if she's not informed about a certain topic, she'll be like, oh yeah, I don't know enough to say this, but I know that some research says this. And I'm like, damn. Like, even the stuff you don't know, right.
And which is like kind of funny to think about. This whole podcast experience has been a big like experiment in the more you know you don't know. I feel like every episode we're just coming away as like, damn, we don't know a ton of stuff.
For real. Right though. There's so many topics.
I mean, there's infinite topics.
Yeah.
So what were some of your key takeaways? Like what were you noodling on afterwards?
I think just the overall approach that she takes to her work. Like her work is so complex. Like diet and nutrition, and she mentioned this repeatedly that like these things are too nuanced in order to say one diet is the right way to go. And I completely appreciate her perspective on that, saying that if you want to have a sustainable diet, you need to pay attention to what your body is like saying, and then like what works in your social life. Because if it doesn't work in your social life, like it's just not going to work out long term. And it's just going to cause you a ridiculous amount of stress that's not necessary. So I think her just entire approach to diet and nutrition is something that I really appreciate.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of people out there who I think if they were listening to that conversation could take away the fact that, like you said, it needs to fit your life. And if you catch yourself being more stressed about the nutritional choices you're making because you're not doing, to throw out a like buzzword, you're not doing keto exactly right, or you're not doing your vegan diet exactly right, you may be in an overcomplicated like attempt of a diet, right? Yeah. And I think on the whole, making better choices in food, regardless of what your plan is, don't get all caught up in quality either, but the level of processing of the food. Are you eating something that's been through 7 factories, or are you eating something that looks like you could have grown it yourself? That might be a good barometer for people to like figure out like, is this good food or not? Pop-Tart, that's a no-no. Celery, good. You know what I mean? Like it can be more simple than people want to make it. And then the other thing that I think I took out of it for sure was that it's just about not being in an overfed state.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that seemed to be more important than a lot of the nitty gritty. Is like she was saying, a lot of people want to tout all these benefits to fasting, but in reality, if you just cut your calories, you'll get a lot of those same benefits. And I think people need to know that, because, you know, I've bought into the fasting train. I've done the low carb stuff before, and I've played around with it. And like, I think it again goes to the point, everybody gets affected by these things different. I respond well to fasting. I can get through a fast till 1 o'clock, no problem. I'm not even thinking about food. And then at 1 o'clock hits and I'm like, but I have to be careful, because I will I'm a glutton, and I will just stuff my face in the afternoon.
Get after it.
So yeah, like you want me to kill an entire pizza? Like, it's happening. Like, no shame. So so that's not good either. Like a stuffed period is not good either. So it's about finding balance at every meal, not over consuming. Mm-hmm. And I feel like after that, it's like, just try and make the best choices and move a little bit. And like, health is attainable for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the benefits for fasting for me have just been that I don't have to worry about like making a meal and taking the time to.
Yeah. There's a convenience factor to it for sure.
Yeah. I think the convenience factor is the most important thing. But yeah, I think the caloric balance is really nice, because even when I do fast until like 1 or 2 o'clock, on those days where I do kind of like just eat a ton at night, my body for sure feels it the next day. Like maybe I'm a little lethargic. Maybe I'm just not feeling right mentally. Mm-hmm. But if I can find that balance each day, like today I feel great. And I think I attribute it a lot to because I was able to eat pretty good yesterday, and then I was able to get like a specific amount of meals in today and drink a ton of water. That's nice. Yeah. I crushed that gallon the other night.
Nice.
Remember that?
There you go. I do remember that.
That was wild.
You walked in and I was like, Nick, it's 6:30 and you got like 2/3 of a gallon to go.
I said I was going to do it because Brennan challenged me.
Yeah. Caveat, he also wet the bed.
I did. I can't just admit to that. That was a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't just like, yeah, okay. Anyways, we're off the rails here.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm with you on like just a caloric balance. I think is so important, and it doesn't get talked about enough, because it's always like get all your meals in or finish all the food on your plate. I mean, it's like sometimes I don't even know what I'm eating or like how much I'm eating.
Yeah.
And just having a general sense of understanding about what you're putting in your body is so important, because I don't think, like, if you want to track your calories, count everything, I think it can be really helpful and beneficial. But if you don't want to, like, it's completely okay, but you should still have somewhat of an understanding of, okay, I just ate this and it's around this many calories. Like, what else do I need? And what is my body feeling like it still needs?
Right. I think, and this is something I'll speak from personal experience, tracking the calories is great to give yourself an understanding of portion sizes.
Yeah.
And in the short term, to learn portion sizes. And I like, recently I was like, I did a week of like trying to measure things out and see, not for like a restrictive diet. I just wanted to know how much what I was putting in was. And like, if I saw myself getting off the rails too many calories in a day, because like I know like generally for me, like somewhere in the 2,400 to 2,700, depending on how active I am, is probably a good spot for me. So if I'm like adding it on the app and I'm like nearing 3,000, then I'm like, okay, like that may be 500 calories too much for the day. Like there's no need for me. I'm not gonna like starve. And I think actually that leads me into something that I think about a lot is, you know, just to put it lightly, like the inability of a lot of people in society to just come to terms with a small level of hunger. I think we like have this overly like instant gratification kind of hunger, like satiety mechanism system thing going on, where like we feel the littlest bit hungry and we feel like we need to eat. And I think there's a lot of benefit for people. You don't have to fast, but sit with your hunger for a little bit. I think you'll be fine. And maybe you get hungry and then you drink some water to try and calm that down. And then in an hour, you have that meal.
Mm-hmm.
But I think too many people are like doing that. And then the other thing too many people do is like try and just like eat because it's a meal time.
Oh yeah.
You know, like I woke up, which means it's time for breakfast. And because it's time for breakfast, I'm going to eat. When it's like, I don't wake up hungry anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's kind of okay. I don't need to have calories first thing in the morning. Yeah. Sometimes I wait an hour or two. I just have a cup of coffee and like, that's great. And I love it. And I fully accept the fact that there's people on the other side of the spectrum who really do wake up starving and they need something. And maybe they're better about like keeping their calories low at night, where I'm like huge on my calories at night. So like, but I just think it's important for people to think about.
Yeah. And like on those days when you do wake up hungry, you eat. Like it's not like you just say, no, I'm not going to do that. It's like we listen to our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a like cultural pressure, I feel like you're saying, of this, like we should always eat. Like coming from an Italian family, like anytime I go somewhere, the first question is asked is, oh, are you hungry? Mm-hmm. What can I get you to eat? And it's like, oh, I'm not hungry. And then it's like, oh, well, here's some food. And I'm like, oh,
right.
Well, I'm going to eat a little bit then. Yeah. Because it looks fantastic.
Yeah, there's definitely like a cultural vibe of like, you know, even from the time people are young, it's like you got to eat up if you want to be big and strong. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it develops a lot of these really unnatural eating habits for people. Like I promise you, if a child is hungry, they will probably tell you and find food. It doesn't need to be like something forced on them. You know, I think it'd be pretty natural. But we do this like big, if you want to be big and strong, you've got to eat up. You've got to like finish your vegetables. Like you got to clear your plate. Like
slam that gallon of milk.
I mean, I don't know about your childhood, Nick, but I never slammed a gallon of milk. No, but like the point is, I think that maybe we need to just realize like people will eat when they're hungry. Mm-hmm. And to say like you need to eat up to be big and strong, like I think maybe we need to be careful about like pushing a habit on somebody that may develop into an unhealthy relationship with food. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes overlooked all the time.
Yeah. And then just looking at the other side of it too, because we're definitely not saying like undereat. Like we're just saying,
correct.
Like, listen to your body, find the balance.
To be extremely clear, I'm saying with an obesity epidemic in the United States, I think there's clear evidence that we have a massive amount of the population who has a poor relationship with food. Mm-hmm. And there could be other causes other than like, you know, obviously we're like creating food that's hyper palatable, like so you can just eat a ton of it. Like that's no doubt a big factor. But I think we can like do a little bit of, you know, taking some personal responsibility for how we got to this situation also.
Yeah. Food should be an enjoyable experience like all around. Like it shouldn't be that I don't want to eat food because I want to have like be skinny or fit. And it shouldn't be that I'm eating all this food and I'm guilty about doing so. It should be that like I want to eat this food and it makes me feel good and it gives me the energy to do things.
Yeah.
Like completely.
I am a victim of being like, I can feel my emotional state change when I go too long without enough calories. I can feel it for sure. Not like on a meal by meal basis, but on like a 2 or 3 days, if I'm not eating enough, I feel it. And all of a sudden, like I know that I need to eat more. Mm-hmm. And that does not happen very often. So when it does happen, I'm definitely aware of it. So yeah, like if you're not feeling good, eat more. Mm-hmm. If you feel great, you're probably getting enough food.
Yeah.
You know? So it's an interesting dance, but something that people need to, you know, not just throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say like, oh, I'm doing whatever. You know what I mean? Like people want to not take responsibility and overcomplicate it, when I think there's some pretty basic things a lot of people can do to be better.
Yeah, was health just like not talked about a lot before?
Yeah, I think like there was no need, right? Like if we want to trace back like the food system, like we started getting into a lot of these problems with like the Industrial Revolution, because then we started like mass producing food, like monocrop agriculture, like all of this stuff like has had such a negative impact on, and there, like, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole because like I'll start to get feisty, but like we literally like the USDA paid producers of corn in the Midwest to produce all that corn so we could create high fructose corn syrup and vegetable oils to just pack into our food. And then we just started going off the rails on calories.
Those are my two favorite things.
Well,
but
I don't know what to tell you.
Insane.
Right? Like
that is insane.
Like we were paying these farmers to produce these in mass quantities so they could keep up with the demand of what they were packing into our foods.
Wow. And we're just accepting of, I mean, the general public almost has to be accepting of it based on how how big these producers were and how,
and they were coming out in government regulations that like,
yeah,
like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't know that I would say that putting a heart healthy logo on something necessarily means that it's like, I think, and here's a good point. We've regulated this with the government. We've got all of these different entities who are telling us what's good for us and what's bad for us. I just genuinely left that conversation with Jessie Hoffman thinking, hey, we actually don't know that much. This research is young. We haven't been doing a good job. Again, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but like it is very easy to find evidence that interest groups pay for studies to have results that feed their agenda. Mm-hmm. Food pun, because it's feeding the agenda. But like the sugar companies had, like, it is pretty well known that high refined carbohydrate in the diet over a prolonged period of time leads to diabetes. Mm-hmm. Like that's like insulin, like when you mess with your insulin sensitivity and you are no longer able to properly balance your insulin and your cortisol, you can't, like, you develop diabetes. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
Well, you mess with your insulin because you're consuming sugar like a madman because it's packed into all of our food. Mm-hmm. And these like Coca-Cola and Gatorade and all these other companies were literally paying for studies to be done to show that the evidence is inconclusive as to whether or not, right? So it's like, what are we doing here?
We're not.
Do we actually care about the people?
No.
I care about the people, Nick.
It's about the money, Brendan. Are you stupid?
Fat stacks, yo. So
for real though, that's like, what it comes down to. Right?
Yeah, and like we don't know enough to say that like the USDA recommendation. I mean, okay, I'll take that back. The USDA recommendation that comes out like every 5 years on like a 20 to 25, I think just came out. Check out Jessie Hoffman's Instagram.
Yeah, she was going to post a lot about it.
She was giving us some pretty solid recommendations in line with the FDA. Like for the most part, for most people, that stuff's going to be pretty good. Again, stay away from the refined stuff, like heavily refined items, or just at least try and keep them to a minimum, I would say. Because again, you got to live your life. Like if you want that bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, you got to crush it. Like there's no questions asked.
Slam that.
I mean, unbelievable. It's so good.
It is unreal.
But we have to understand the consequences of every bowl.
Also unreal.
Yeah, the consequences are unreal. So, yeah, I think the food industry is just a messy place.
These are just like systemic issues that I feel like were just generally accepted because they were put into place by such like a powerful entity, like as our government.
Yeah.
Like I think about cigarettes too, right? It's like
for sure.
This was something that was just accepted, and now it's like, oh, maybe we messed that one up.
Yeah.
But the companies that are for this and funding it are like, we didn't mess this one up. Look at how much money we have. Let's keep this going. Mm-hmm. Oh, e-cigarettes? Let's do this then.
Yeah. Well, and like on the vegan thing, right? Like that's a really common group that loves to talk about the like health benefits of their diet. And a lot of the stuff that they cite is things like the blue zones. And like they want to say that there's 7 blue zones around the world. One of them is in Loma Linda, California, that there's some kind of, and these blue zones are longevity zones, areas where people live vastly longer than the average age.
Oh, okay.
And they study them
I was gonna say I'm not familiar with blue zones.
So that's what the blue zones are. They're zones where there's record longevity for a community. And they tried to identify what all these different like pillars of lifestyle are that they subscribe to. And there's a lot of misinterpreted information out there about like the diet that they've eaten. And okay, so to address the diet thing really quick before I go on to some of the other pillars, the diet is quoted as plant-based diets. Well, the one in Loma Linda might be, but there is, I think, and like somebody fact check me if you think if I'm full of it or if you heard something different, but I'm fairly certain that all of the other blue zones except for Loma Linda reported a animal-based protein in their diet. They did not. So like, and then when you dig into it, it's like the Seventh-day Adventist Church, who's on the medical side and has a vested interest in this like lifestyle and diet that they're now calling a vegan thing. Like they're just all messed up in this.
People are just clipping out certain words of this.
Right. Well, and people will they'll hear something, they'll tout the blue zones as being the keto longevity, and then they'll pull out the fact that it's a vegan diet because in Loma Linda it might be. And they'll want to put it on diet when in reality, there's so many other factors like daily physical activity at these locations. They are all known for having, they either walk a few miles, they garden, they like just live an active lifestyle. There's community, like they are a well-established community of people who are like loving and supporting of one another. That translates directly to stress levels. Like, and again, we're talking about your nutrition shouldn't consume your life, right? Like, I just think people are like putting this longevity thing, to tie up my rabbit hole that I've gone down. They're putting this longevity thing on nutrition when really, like Dr. Hoffman said, like maybe just not being stressed out about what you're doing is the key.
Yeah.
And just making what you are like 80% sure are good choices, you're probably going to be fine. And I think that's makes the nutrition industry, it's like such a dangerous place to try and do some research in, because you just never know who's behind the research, and you never know like whose agenda is being pushed in whatever you're reading. And like, it's one of those sad places where like people push their agenda.
Yeah.
You are easily going to get lost in literature or videos or whatever if you try and do research. You just don't know, because to like pose a counter argument to the vegan thing, there are so many people who have done this carnivore diet now, or it's like kind of forming into like this animal based, because they go plant based, this animal based diet that does have what are being called as non-toxic plant foods. And there are people who are thriving, reversing diseases on this kind of a diet. And I'm not saying that that's perfect and that everybody should go and do that. What I'm saying is, if it's working and people are seeing really good results and we're not seeing any like really damaging results, there's something there that we have to not just like tune out.
Yeah.
Like, we have to be curious about all of these things that are working for certain people. So, yeah, whenever anybody says that they have the answer to this, be very skeptical.
You just say you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because they are.
Yeah.
They might have one answer.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So, soapbox over.
No, I think that was a great rabbit hole that you just pulled yourself out of, because it is very true. And just the fact that like the body is so adaptable that you choosing a vegan diet isn't going to promote your health like that much more than you just being like generally healthy. Right.
Right.
Like, and maybe it does if you have certain conditions or your body's a certain way, but like people who like, there's a general average of longevity, and of course, like your health and what you put in your body is going to impact that. But if you're just eating a generally good diet and then you cheat every now and then, like your body's going to be good.
Yeah.
And it's going to be sustainable.
Right.
And like you're saying, I think the added pressure of stress about what we're eating becomes a huge factor that like ruins a lot of things. And if you can do away with that stress with eating and have a good relationship with food, like it can be so positive. Because I mean, I definitely found myself being like a little stressed out about what I was eating. I think
everybody does at some point.
Yeah, like more towards the beginning of the pandemic, I wanted to really focus on like doing low carb, and honestly, I saw great results and I thought it was awesome. But then it came to a point to where I was like, okay, I'm like turning down things that I want to eat, and like I don't want to just keep doing this. Like it's cool that maybe there's some type of end result, like physically, but what is that doing to me socially or emotionally?
Yeah.
And it just wasn't worth it completely. It was fun to experiment with, but strictly to experiment with. It's not going to be something that I'm going to do for the rest of my life because it's simply not sustainable.
Right. Well, and I think you're bringing up a great point, is that you can do that and feel good because your body has the capacity to run at a high level on other types of nutrients. And I think this is a common misconception, and we kind of touch on it in the podcast, but people like this is, I'm going to say the same thing about keto as I am vegan, as I am whatever. Just because you go on a vegan diet and you see results doesn't mean that the results came from the vegan diet. It probably came because you took a lot of crap out of your diet.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe you started working out.
And maybe you decided that like now you're going to ramp up your workouts, and like there's so many other things. And the same thing on the keto side. You probably took out a lot of crap when you went keto and you like started eating cleaner quality stuff, and you're re-engaging some of like ketosis is a process. It is a physical capacity your body has. Most people have the ability to achieve ketosis. That doesn't mean that living in ketosis is like should be your way of life. Mm-hmm. And now I'm not saying that it is or isn't. I just don't know, and I don't think anybody knows because like we kind of mentioned, there's no long-term research on this stuff. So I think what I took away from what you just said is maybe 1 week a month you do a low carb diet because you want to have the ability for your body to like thrive on a low carb state. And maybe you'll see some benefits from that, but don't like try and make some kind of like ridiculous lifelong commitment to being low carb. Like, because in reality, you know, I think a lot about nutrition in terms of what would have happened if like there were no grocery stores and you were hunting and gathering your food, right? Like,
I don't want those carbs. I'll just not eat.
Yeah, right. Like I'm going to pass. No, of course not. Like if you couldn't hunt and like get something for like your tribe of people, or somebody else wasn't bringing back food, like, you know, Dr. Paul Saladino, who has a podcast called Fundamental Health, talks about this all the time. And he is kind of more in the carnivore camp, but he's actually been shifting away from it because he accepts the fact that civilizations, as they were developing, needed fallback foods. Like it may be great for you to be low carb 50%, but you're going to have to be able to tolerate carbs on the other side of that because it's not realistic for you to go 100% like low carb all the time, because the option, if you were back then, would be you just didn't eat anything, which is not a sustainable thing because you're going to need energy for the next time you need to go hunt, right? So
yeah,
I think we just need to look at all of these fad diets as like, you need the capacity to utilize that diet, but that diet is not your lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, and I think people get lost in this like, oh, I did this keto diet, I feel great. And it's like, good, you should have. Does that mean it's your lifelong diet now? Probably not. I don't know that that's necessarily healthy, because as much as you want to flex your ability to get into ketosis every once in a while, I feel like it's probably a good thing to like be cyclical with your diet, just like there's points of feast and famine like throughout life. I think you need to be able to tolerate maybe a meal that you do 100% based off of plants, and you need to be able to tolerate that to a certain point because you probably just need to get the nutrients sometimes. So yeah, I'm like, a balanced diet is good most of the time. Dip into these fads every now and again when you feel like maybe you need to hit a low carb because you're just feeling like that's just the right thing to do. And then, you know, maybe a couple weeks later, you're like, man, I just feel like really just like going, you know, powerful with the vegetables and like fruits and stuff. Do that.
Yeah.
And then be balanced most of the other times and let yourself, you know, just destroy a medium Domino's pizza to yourself whenever you want.
Get after it.
I mean, I can't say that I've done it. Can't say that I haven't.
It's just so fantastic.
I mean, they put
We
that
need to
like
enjoy
garlic
those
and
things.
butter on that crust.
Ooh.
A little like Parmesan salt or something. I don't know,
Ooh.
but shoot. When you get a coupon that's got a medium for $5.99 and you can put pepperoni, pineapple, and jalapenos on that and just like enjoy your night, I was living.
That is living.
If I did it, still can't confirm or deny.
You 100%.
Oh, I did it.
But yeah, just to sum things up almost. Like sustainability and practicality and listen to your body and balance. And these things have generally progressed over time to get to a better space, I feel. But I am pretty sick of all these, like, do this for weight loss or do this for that. And it's just for like a thumbnail or a view. It is really frustrating. And that's another reason why I am grateful for Dr. Hoffman and her work, because like the content she pushes out is real. It's research based. She like makes sure that it's not just some bogus research too.
She's not dogmatic in what she's talking about.
No.
Yeah. The minute she hears another perspective, it's like, okay, we have to consider this.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just very personable. And that just needs to be the approach, that there is no right or wrong, like you're saying. So I think this has been fantastic.
Yeah.
I think we've generally talked about what we needed to talk about.
Same.
Yeah. And just, we've said this before, we are not experts. We are not giving out diet advice, nutrition advice through this, but these are just our thoughts and our opinions.
Yeah.
And
if I can send the people away with one message, is don't nutrition shame people either, because that's, I think, important. So if somebody approaches you and they're doing a diet and they want to experiment with that, all the power to them. If somebody doesn't want to do the diet, you don't have to try and convert everybody like some like crazy evangelist. But yeah, if somebody's trying to diet, great. That's good for them. You know, like you should tinker with that stuff, like in a safe setting, like, you know, as best you can, like consult your doctor, do your research, all that stuff. But like everybody should come down to like, if you feel good, you should keep doing what you're doing.
yes,
You know?
because I feel like a huge part of this is just the placebo. If you
Yeah.
feel good and you think that you're feeling good, then you're probably going to keep feeling good. Boom.
Amen. Hey,
Office hours 9.
don't forget to like, you know, use your meat vehicle, as Joe Rogan likes to say. Like work out a little bit, you know? Like just get a little movement in. Use the meat vehicle. It's important. It's an important part of the nutrition thing. You need the processes that your body wants to do, like having muscle on your body. Not a ton. I'm just saying like activating your muscles is like an important part of like your immunity and all that stuff. Again, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but use your meat vehicle.
It's just good to get that energy out, right?
Yeah.
You feel refreshed whenever you do get kind of active.
Yeah.
Let's get active, Brendan.
Let's get active. Let's get out of here and get active.
All right. Office hours 9. Great conversation with Dr. Hoffman. Very grateful. Again, please check out her content if you want actual expert advice, and not our kind of just back and forth, which is fantastic. We know, but
It's just some good banter, but shoot, I mean,
it's just
we're a bunch
banter.
of dummies.
Yeah. Next episode, Brendan, what do we have in store?
We are doing something pretty cool, I think. We're giving the rest of the professors a break momentarily, because we thought it would be a good idea to share some real world advice and perspective on some of the challenges that some people are facing throughout the pandemic. So we're going to talk with somebody about their world and how things have been impacted, and some good lessons and things that have been learned throughout the process. So I think it'll be really interesting for people to learn about what's been going on in other people's worlds.
Yes. Particularly like leadership and management in the workplace, but a very like down to earth, raw, emotional experience. So
yeah. So yeah, to give I guess another little glimpse and tie in, if you listen to our interview with Marianne Cook and Dr. Jean-Francois Coget, we thought this would be a good way to kind of blend some of the things that they talk about into a conversation with somebody who's putting those things into practice on a more daily basis than Jean-Francois and Marianne are.
Yeah.
So.
No, 100%. That's spot on. So yeah, thanks for stopping by Office Hours. We always appreciate it, and we look forward to the next one.
Get pissed off for greatness. We're out.
We're out. See you, everyone.